Good afternoon. My name is Caleria Person, and I am the headmaster at Emmanuel Preparatory School of Math and Science. A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to sit down and talk with my third, fourth, and fifth grade teachers during their common collaborative planning time, as I had an opportunity previously to do some observations in the classrooms, some walkthroughs, and actually look at some student work samples. There was a concern that I had in mind about the rigor of work that was being done across the grade levels, whether or not that particular work that the scholars of our school were producing, if it actually was work that met their capabilities or was below their capabilities, or as if it was challenging enough for the scholars. And so as I had an opportunity to meet with those three teachers on my grade levels, we were able to discuss reflecting on our teaching practices as to whether or not there are high expectations for all of our scholars across the school. And so some of the things that I asked each of them was, what evidence of teaching practices reflect high expectations for all scholars? Do they see in the kind of tasks that they're asking the scholars to do, in the work that they are asking them to produce? And then also, do they see evidence of teaching reflection practices of high expectations in scholars' participation in the lessons that they teach? And what is the message that they are sending, both on reflection of teaching practice, both on their reflection of teaching the practices and their high expectations for scholars to support the high academic achievement learning environment that we're trying to provide here for our scholars. And so in that, I was able to kind of go back and sit back and talk again with these educators of my school. And we wanted to kind of just look at what is high expectations, what is rigor, as we are reflecting on our teaching practices. What are those things that we see in our learning environment that reflects that? And how can we do a better job of that across the board so that we can make sure that as we are meeting the scholars' needs and what we call our individualized learning plans, our LLPs, that we are also making sure that we are challenging them with some of the same high expectations across the board. So as they continue to move up in the grades, the level of rigor increases and those high expectations increase, but yet still they have had a solid, strong foundation in the grades before them to continue to build upon. So one of the things we sat down and we kind of compiled a list of things of what does that actually look like in my classroom when I am setting high expectations across the board for my scholars to make sure that we are addressing these things in their individualized learning plans. And so some of the things that the teachers came up with and shared with me was that teachers provide positive reinforcement for their scholars, showing that they have confidence in their scholars' abilities, that the scholars are fully engaged in their lessons, that they have already planned for them to learn the content in which they are teaching. Another thing was, are the scholars able to demonstrate in different ways their understanding of the course material? Those expectations would be fully shown in that way if they are able to demonstrate in a number of ways how they understand that course material. Another thing that we talked about was our scholars demonstrating critical thinking skills and their ability to solve problems. And that is very key for our curriculum here at Emmanuel Prep, because we are centered around providing those opportunities, especially during our project-based learning and collaboration times with the scholars. We want them to be able to demonstrate those critical thinking skills in this 21st century of learning that we are trying to provide to them through our curriculum. And how are they able to solve those problems? How are they demonstrating that ability to be able to solve those problems? One of the things that another one of the teachers came across with was making sure that as the teachers of the staff of Emmanuel Prep, that they're asking deeper, thought-provoking questions, and they expect the students to answer. They don't just gloss over them, but they're expecting the scholars to answer those questions either directly or through another form of communication, such as writing or even just having those collaborative discussions with their peers. So when they present these deeper, thought-provoking questions, that the expectation is that these scholars are able to answer those, but it may be through various forms. So it may be in the form of writing, or it may be in the form of them having a collaborative discussion with their peer, if they're able to reflect and show understanding. Another thing that was key when we look at our environment is that, are the scholars comfortable and confident enough to ask questions when they don't understand? So what have we done to set a culture of learning, set a culture of expectations that this is a safe place to take a risk? And so that they have those safety nets that are put in place so that they can perform and perform at their optimal best, because they feel safe in taking those risks, and they feel confident and comfortable in doing so. Teachers encouraging small group collaboration in addition to the independent work can also help to support high expectations and rigor in the classroom, like we would like to see it more demonstrated throughout the school year. And another thing was a real big aha that most people may not think that necessarily that it was an aha moment, but for those teachers who may not necessarily get it, and they themselves are not necessarily comfortable asking questions or sharing what they don't necessarily understand, was that it would be important that our teachers display student work in the classroom and throughout the hallways of the school, so that they can each see what is the rigor being demonstrated based on the product of the student work. So posting that more and maybe bringing those things in during our staff professional learning time to discuss, how does this work sample demonstrate high expectations for the content in which the teacher was teaching. So I think having that visual sometimes and bringing those things in our own adult collaborative learning environments helps the teachers also become comfortable and confident in being able to step out on limbs, or even just kind of having an idea, an assurance of what I am doing is correct, or maybe I need to step up my my rigor in my classroom, my high expectations in my classrooms based on what I'm seeing in other grade levels across the board. So definitely making sure that we continue to provide an environment would be the onus for me of professional learning, where teachers are able to also feel safe and also feel comfortable to either demonstrate their expertise and be able to share with one another, share with their colleagues, or ask for help if they need to ask for that. But I think coming across the board, all of our teachers were in consensus that it is important for them to reflect on their teaching practices and to also reflect on the evidence, the assessment, the data, the student work samples, to continually remind themselves of the expectations that they are putting out before the scholars based on the standards that they want them to teach, resulting in the product that they want the scholars to produce, that it is important for us to be reflective. And if we are doing that, then when it comes to our scholars' individualized learning plans, we will be almost certain that we are meeting the needs of those scholars in those ILP plans, because we have been reflective in our practices, in our teaching practices, and making sure that high expectations are implemented, are shared, and are modeled and demonstrated for the scholars to reach. So it was a very good time for us to be able to sit down and have that discussion, and to see how we can come together as a group to see what we could put in place to help us make sure that we are doing that. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share the follow-up from our problem of practice.